Hey guys, welcome to the Sports Table Talk Show. My name is Jack Stankey. I am joined with Ryan Blake and Sam Levine, and we are here to talk about every single sports news going on. We know there was a giant hiatus from sports from this COVID-19 global pandemic, but now sports are back and better than ever. We're going to have an interview with Christian Arnold, the editor-in-chief of New York Islanders Hockey Now. We're going to talk NHL playoffs. We're going to talk NBA bubble. But first, we're going to start off with the most recent sporting news coming out yesterday. The Big Ten and the rest of the Power 5 conferences have officially discussed shutting down the 2020 college football season, and I know that we are all very sad about that. Ryan, what are your thoughts about them shutting it down or talking about shutting it down?
So, first off, it's just unfortunate for the players. It really just kills all of them. You got that. Like Joe Burrow put out a tweet yesterday. If this happened last year, I'd be looking for a job. It just kills people like that. It's just really unfortunate. But when it comes to the organization, I feel like the NCAA dropped the ball on this. They should have done a much better job coming up with procedures, figuring out ways they could possibly play. And when it comes to this, you just got to cancel it. It's just really unfortunate, and I feel like they should have done a much better job with this.
Yeah, I agree 100% on the NCAA part of that. And like you said, Joe Burrow, he'd be looking for a job, and who knows, that could have been the end of someone's career in football. Obviously, he didn't have the best junior year, so who knows? We've seen players like Trevor Lawrence come out and say, we want to play, but other players like Micah Parsons and Rashad Bateman, these big players opt out. So it's a mixed bag, and, it's really unfortunate, but I feel like the NCAA really should have stepped in, done more instead of just leaving it to the conferences because, they're conferences. And if some conferences opt out, some don't, it just creates chaos. And if the NCAA stepped in, I feel like a lot of this could have been avoided.
I completely agree with the both of you. The NCAA is one of the biggest organizations in sports. They have a lot of money. They could have definitely done a better idea. I think they definitely dropped the ball on this. I think that they should have made the decision cooperatively with all the divisions. I think they could have done a bubble idea like the NBA and the NHL. I think that they really could have done a lot better. I think they're going to take some heat if they end up canceling the season. But like Sam mentioned before, and Ryan, Joe Burrow would not be the first overall pick if it wasn't for his amazing senior season with LSU winning that national championship. Justin Fields is the quarterback for Ohio State. And, he had a stellar junior season, but coming into it this next year for him, he wants to be one of the best quarterbacks and have a Joe Burrow type of legacy and go very high in the draft. What are your guys' thoughts on players like this who, will not get that same opportunity, especially for the upperclassmen?
Yeah, absolutely. And then when you look at the players, it's, again, keep going back to it, it just kills them. And the NCAA just drove himself off the bridge, as Jack mentioned before. You could have done a bubble. But now it should have been starting very soon. It's very late to even get discussions away with the bubble. So I feel like they backed themselves into a corner. They can't really delay to the spring because I feel like there'll be just as much of a problem getting all those people together, tests and stuff. So I just feel like if they just came up with a protocol much earlier before all this started, they would have been in a much better spot.
Right. College football and the NFL are pretty much the two leagues that had something very valuable that baseball, basketball, and, hockey didn't have. And that is time and the test dummies of those three leagues. They could have seen what they'd done and, build off of that. And they quite honestly chose not to, right? College football, they could have put together conference bubbles, okay, and done non-conference, completely conference schedules with no conference games. That would have worked out completely fine. Then you have a complete separate bubble for the college football playoff. That would have worked out perfectly. That is, 14 teams per bubble? It's perfect. It works out perfectly okay. Really, just terrible job by the NCAA to step in. Where was the leadership? Where was, the guiding force? And this is not just a statement, not even exclusive to sports. In the times like these, in global pandemics, we need leadership. We need people to stand up and guide us, give us the protocols, give us the guidelines, and the NCAA failed to do that.
Clemson quarterback Trevor Lawrence, along with Ohio State quarterback Justin Fields, and even President Donald Trump have all tweeted their opinions and bashing the NCAA. But, Ryan brought up a great point before about, maybe they want to delay it to the spring. Now, I think that's a terrible idea because I think just during the winter, the COVID cases will spike right back up, and we'll be in the same situation that we were in this March when the whole world shut down. So I think it is absolutely terrible to try and delay it to the spring. I say either have the season, make safety the number one priority for the players, or just cancel it and, bring it back when, the NCAA can all agree on something and make it come back in the best possible way. But,
right.
Yeah, they're all going to vote within the next couple of days. The Power 5 conferences are going to vote on canceling the season. Do we think they're going to cancel it?
I think they're going to cancel it. And then when you go back to Sam's point where it's just so, unbelievable how they've gotten into this spot. I mean, like Sam said, they could have just watched everybody see what they did with their bubble situation. And the MLB's handling it a little bit more poorly than, the NBA and the NHL. But they could have watched it. They could have learned. But instead they just sat there and were sleeping on it. No, it's the NFL. It's the NCAA. This can't happen to us. We'll just power through anything. Nothing can happen. And obviously they see now. I think they're going to cancel the season, and it just shows their poor decision making.
Exactly, and I truly do think they're going to cancel the season. I don't think that you can go on like this. But I want to touch on something that you said, Jack, that, you said either have the season and have safety be the number one priority. Unfortunately, I do think there are a lot of people out there that don't have safety as their number one priority for these college football players. And it's not like they are, professional athletes that really chose this as their career path already and are being paid millions. They're not being paid a single cent. A lot of these people don't want to go to the pros. And a lot of them are teenagers. Some of them are 18, 19, some are 20, 21. They're young kids. And it's terrible when you see these people who don't have safety in a worldwide pandemic as their number one priority, especially when people have had family members that have passed away from this terrible virus.
Yeah, Sam, I completely agree with you. I mean, I think the NCAA needs to make safety its number one priority. And the NBA and the NHL definitely did. They made the bubble rules strict. The MLB dropped the ball as well. And don't even get me started with Rob Manfred being the commissioner of baseball. I have so many opinions about him that I can't even say on air. But, I think that the leaders of the NCAA and the leaders of these Power 5 conferences, I think we're like a Rob Manfred type situation who, couldn't find a way to work around the fact that, there shouldn't be a season. If your players are going to get sick, if they have the threat of dying, there should not be a season. Stop being money hungry, cancel the season, and make it be better for the players. I mean, I'm not sure what else you want me to say.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And then, like I said, it's so hard for the NCAA to even operate like baseball did. Baseball's hard, and they've had teams canceling and postponing games left and right because of positive tests. If you're social distancing playing football, you're just a bad football player, and there's just no way you could possibly do it. I mean, you can't do the only way I think is a bubble, and too late for that.
Right, and like we've been saying this whole time, hammering home the point. The NCAA just they couldn't get their act together. And, I give the conferences a lot of credit because I do think the conferences have handled the situation pretty well. Granted that they haven't really had any, guiding force from, the leaders of their actual organization. And I think about it this way. The NCAA is essentially a worldwide club, basically, right? You're not being paid. Okay, so each conference is a little bit of a segment of the club. And clubs have presidents and leaders just like normal leagues do, right? So the NCAA has a president. What kind of club would it be if, it was left up to the members to make each and every single important decision, especially in these desperate times. It would be very dysfunctional and honestly would maybe be disbanded soon. I'm not saying the NCAA is going to be disbanded soon, but this has been handled very poorly by the leaders of this organization.
Exactly. And then when you go back to the there's no MLB Players Association to battle them on this. They're not unionized. They don't get paid. So they should be able to string together a protocol in early June, and they wouldn't be in this spot. I just find it just ridiculous. And like you said, we just keep going back to the point. The NCAA probably thought that they were bigger than the virus. They could just get through it. And it's just, you see with all these leagues in the world, I'm sorry, it's just not like that. There's not one league, one organization, one person that can stop this.
Yeah, and might I add, you give me a sec, Jack, sorry.
Yeah,
and might I add, just let me get this in here. Might I add, I 100% agree with you, Ryan, that they might have thought that they were above, the virus. And I kind of get that vibe from the NFL too. We've seen it a lot over the course of this pandemic. The NHL and NBA, really being very progressive and trying to figure out the best way to do this. And I give them a lot of credit. They've done that. MLB really trying. It hasn't really successfully worked. But the NFL, I don't see the effort really. And I haven't seen the effort in the NCAA either. I just get the vibe that they feel that they can just overcome it and that they will be better and above the virus.
We talk so much about the virus, and the NCAA really profits a lot from these southern states like Alabama and Georgia, who really take college sports more seriously than their pro sports teams do. I mean, Alabama and Auburn are two of the best college football franchises. And, what else? There's no pro sports teams in Alabama. They only focus on Alabama college football. So, these fans that want to go out and tailgate and do all this stuff, not a lot of masks being worn. Florida has had an uptick in cases. A lot of the southern states has had an uptick in cases. And, if we just start piling in 40,000 people into a parking lot to drink beers and, flip burgers and watch the game and listen to it on the radio, this virus will not go away. And it's sad to say that we've been speaking about the same exact thing since March about this virus not going away. But if we start, having all this momentum towards college sports, I don't think there's any way that this virus dissipates in the slightest amount of time. I mean, we might not even get rid of it, from the MLB. I think the NBA and the NHL really took the lead sports related and have really set a standard for the country and even the world on what they should be doing to kind of handle this virus.
Mm-hmm. Completely agree. And plus, the NCAA was just as confused about the protocols and the rules as the NFL is and will continue to be. The only difference between the NCAA and the NFL was that most of the players don't have the platform that the NFL does. You see Odell Beckham saying that the season should absolutely not be played. The Patriots defense was destroyed from people opting out. They were an okay team. They've at least lost 2 wins on their season because of this defense completely disappearing. So you see the NFL, they have the players and the Players Association, although not as strong as the MLB, they have the platform to communicate with the general public and the leaders in the organization that this season shouldn't be played. You should get together some rules, figure it out. But when it comes to game time in early September, I want to play and I want to be safe.
100%. And, like you said, the players opting out and choosing not to play because of their safety. We saw Tre'Davious White on the deadline. He was flirting with the idea of opting out. And we saw him get attacked on Twitter, actually, even after the opt-out deadline, that he was even thinking of opting out. And to me, that's disgusting that players are getting that kind of hate. He later tweeted out that his girlfriend's grandma died because of COVID. And, of course you're going to think about opting out if that happens to you. It's just despicable and disgusting to me. And I 100% back and support the decision to cancel the season for the Big Ten and the Pac-12, and I think the rest of the Power 5 conferences will follow suit.
I mean, come on now. football wants to put masks and visors in the helmets of players when they play. That is just absurd to me. I mean, I don't get the point. I mean, come on now. But, when we come back, we're going to be discussing the NHL playoffs. The qualifying round just ended. Lots of things to look forward to up in Toronto and Edmonton. Stay with us here. Welcome back, folks, to Sports Table Talk. Again, I'm Jack Stankey, joined with Ryan Blake and Sam Levine, and we are here to break down the NHL playoffs starting. And, before we get into any playoffs-related stuff, the draft lottery happened last night. The New York Rangers got the number 1 overall pick, and Alexei Lafreniere is going to be the next New York Ranger, leading them, I'm telling you, to a Stanley Cup charge very soon in the future.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's huge for the Rangers. One of the best young teams in the league, and this is just fast-tracking their process. Have Panarin, have Capo Caco, who's developing, and the goaltenders seem really promising watching that third game in the Hurricane series, and it's just really looking up for the Rangers.
Yeah, and honestly, getting Capo Caco last year with a very high pick, and then this year going to get Lafreniere with the first overall pick, just building a very strong young foundation, obviously with those two great young goalies, and then Panarin, of course. They're going to have a very solid foundation for the future. This team is going to be right back on top very soon.
And the only thing I want the Rangers not to do is mess up like the Toronto Maple Leafs. I don't want the Rangers to rush this rebuild that they have going on. Last year the Rangers sent out a letter to their fans saying, the end of an era is over. We are going into a rebuild. And, they fast-tracked it by, signing Artemi Panarin, drafting Capo Caco, getting this number 1 overall pick. We'll just keep the momentum rolling on that. But I want to just make sure that, Jeff Gordon, as the GM for the Rangers, make sure that he slows down this rebuild process, just like the Toronto Maple Leafs, who got bounced in Game 5 in the first round. Absolutely blasphemous to me. How do you lose to a team, again, who is not as good as you on paper? Come on, Toronto.
All right,
Absolutely.
well, listen in. So, listen, in basketball, if you put Austin Matthews, John Tavares, those two, and then that team on a basketball team, okay, they're probably going to win a championship and make a deep playoff run. But this is hockey. You cannot win with just a great first line. You got to have some great depth. You got to have a great second line, some great defensemen. I would say that you got to have the most depth and most quality players in hockey than any other sport, perhaps maybe football. I love the Maple Leafs, the talent that they have, but it just really wasn't enough to overcome the Blue Jackets.
Absolutely. Moving back to the Rangers, Jack made a great point saying with the letter sent to the fans. I feel like the Rangers' next step is just face it. Lundqvist is one of the best goalies of all time. You have to move on. You've got two great young goaltenders in Georgiev and Shesterkin, and they're going to rule and be the goalie for this franchise for years to come. And that's just that next step for the Rangers. If you want to make a deep playoff run, you're going to have to let go. And I know Rangers decision or not, his career is going to come to an end very soon. And I feel like it's the Rangers' job to take that step, say goodbye, thank him for everything. But it's time to move on. It's time to usher in this new Rangers era of goaltending.
Yeah, and I agree with you because not only do they have two very good young goaltenders, which you do need to, so it's not like they would be really losing anything by letting Lundqvist go. Shesterkin and Georgiev, both very solid. It's also that Lundqvist is being paid a lot of money. He's being paid, has a cap hit around $8 million for the 2020-2021 season. So I think it's time to move on, like you said, Ryan. Start of a new era for the Rangers with Panarin and now going forward with Shesterkin and Georgiev.
Breaks my heart to see Lundqvist's career coming to an end. I mean, he has been the rock of this Rangers team for so many years, since 2005. I mean, Cup run in 2014, so many Game 7 victories, so exciting to watch him play. But I completely agree with you guys. His time has definitely come to an end. as the Rangers goaltender. But, whose time has not come to an end, shockingly? The team of the Chicago Blackhawks, who just defeated the Edmonton Oilers. I mean, I feel like I was watching John Moran and Murray State take down Marquette last year in the March Madness tournament with the 12 seed to 5 seed upset. How did the Oilers lose this? I mean, they have McDavid and Draisaitl with, a great team around them, and they lost to a team of older players such as Jonathan Toews and Patrick Kane. How? I don't understand hockey.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And if it's going to be any sport where that would happen, it's hockey. I mean, Absolutely. When you look, the Oilers were probably top cup contenders, and then it's just hockey. It's how it works. It's the playoff atmosphere. Fans or not, it's still going to stay the same. It's still going to be that intense hockey, and there's going to be a ton of upsets that happen, and that's just what so many people love when it comes to playoff time for hockey.
One year, I feel like Edmonton is such an inconsistent team. One year, they're right in it for the cup, and then the next year, they're average. And, I feel like Draisaitl is my pick for MVP. McDavid is a top 3 player in the NHL, if not the best player in the NHL, if we're going to be quite honest. But, I mean, they don't have the I don't want to say superstar, but they don't have the really solid talent behind those guys like some of the other top-tier teams do to, consistently be in the running for the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, I don't understand. Another 12-5 upset that happened was the Montreal Canadiens, who were at least 10 points out of even being in the playoffs if it wasn't for this 24-team return to play. They took down the Pittsburgh Penguins, who, in our generations, in our lifetimes, has been some of the best hockey we've ever seen. Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, all those players on the Penguins have always been so good. And, again, they lost. I think their time as, one of the best teams in the NHL has also come to an end.
Yeah, that could be some rust mixed with some age. But obviously the Canadians have been a very good team for a while, so they've got some experience. However, they weren't great this season. Obviously, not debatable, but they do have the experience as well as the Penguins do. Honestly, I don't know what to say. I really do think that if one of these 5 seeds was going to beat the 12 seed, I thought it would be the Penguins, because I do feel like the Penguins have more experience than Edmonton and, just more experience. And Sidney Crosby, like you said, Evgeny Malkin, just surprising. But at the same time, Canadians are a veteran team and they are a good team. But truly, Penguins, were not up to par in that series. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Completely agree with Sam. And I was shocked that the Penguins lost. I mean, they've got such a great team, some of the top guys in the NHL. And I really thought that they were going to actually go pretty deep in this playoffs, but pretty shocked by the loss.
Yeah, me as well. I mean, what else I'm also shocked about is the Vegas Golden Knights and the Philadelphia Flyers grabbing the number 1 seeds in their respective divisions. I mean, the St. Louis Blues and Boston Bruins, who met last year in the Stanley Cup Finals, didn't win a game. They didn't even win a single game, and we have Vegas and Philadelphia catching these 1 seeds. Are Vegas and Philadelphia true Cup contenders? I don't know. I think the Flyers could. I also think Vegas could. But, like Ryan said before, hockey is a game up for grabs, and I do not know if those guys are true contenders.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. When you look at that, you would think that the Golden Knights, they've got like a great chance. But again, you've seen these upsets all throughout the playoffs so far. And I would take the Golden Knights to win the cup, but you guys know it's hockey. Anything's possible.
Yeah, I mean, one more thing. Who do we see winning the Stanley Cup? I got the Colorado Avalanche, personally. That's just my pick. I'm not sure about you guys, but I mean, the Avalanche with McKinnon and Rantanen with that goalie and Cale Makar, who's going to, is a leading candidate for the Calder Trophy. I think that that team is going to win the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, I could see the Avalanche winning, but I think the Golden Knights and the Flyers are 2 very good teams. Flyers have been on a hot streak. They've been phenomenal. even really since before the restart. And as we know, the Golden Knights, super competitive, making the Stanley Cup in only their first season as an official team. They got some great competitors, both these teams. However, I'm not sure that they are maybe the best teams on paper in their conferences. Both of them are definitely Stanley Cup competitors.
Yeah, absolutely. And Sam, I'm going to have to agree with you. I think I'm going to have to go with the Golden Knights, the betting favorites for the Stanley Cup. Just such an explosive team. And again, barring any upsets, I think they should have the Stanley Cup in their hands by the end of the season.
You know, I do love Marc-Andre Fleury in net for the Golden Knights. He's already won a cup or two with the Penguins, so I definitely see them, you know, going far as well. But when we come back, we will be joined by Christian Arnold for an interview about hockey. You know, let's see what he has to say. Stay with us. Guys, welcome back, and we have the absolute pleasure of being joined with the editor-in-chief of New York Islanders Hockey Now, Christian Arnold. Go follow him on Twitter at C_Arnold01. Christian, thanks so much for joining us.
Happy to do it, guys. How are you?
You know, we're good, and especially that hockey's back, we're even better. Now, I want to start off with a question. Big news coming out of the NHL last night. The NHL draft lottery takes place, and the New York Rangers secure the #1 overall pick, are almost guaranteed to take Alexis Lafreniere. How will Lafreniere help the Rangers, who have been a struggling team lately, in a playoff push for the next seasons to come?
Yeah, it's a big thing for them. It goes a long way in their rebuild, which they kind of expedited it already with getting Artemi Panarin in the offseason. So that kind of pushed it a lot faster than I think they anticipated. So bringing him in is going to be another huge boost. Look, the Rangers weren't expected to make the postseason this year. It was really exciting to kind of watch them do that in the second half of the season and really become a better team, led by the charge of Igor Shesterkin. In net, who was just lights out, and it's going to be phenomenal going forward. So that was fun to watch, and you know, I'm sure they're disappointed they got bounced from the postseason by Carolina pretty quickly, but at the same time, it's a great learning experience for some of the younger guys, and then obviously to get the first overall pick is just a huge thing for them too. Amazing. So I mean, they really make out like a banshee in this whole situation when you think about it. They get the postseason experience for some of the younger guys, and they still get the #1 overall pick. Not a lot of teams get that opportunity, or no teams get that opportunity really. So they got the best circumstance they could possibly ask for when it comes to everything that's happened in the last couple months.
Mm-hmm. Moving to the other team in New York, how well do you think the Islanders match up against the Capitals for the upcoming series? You know, they had a successful last run advancing. So what do you think about it now?
Yeah, Washington's going to be a tough team. They are, without a doubt, much better all around than the Florida Panthers were in the last round. Look, the Panthers are a great offensive team. There's no doubt about it. And the Islanders did a great job of kind of putting a stranglehold on that offense. But defensively, they're not as tough. The Capitals have a much better defensive unit. Obviously, Braden Holtby being in net. Well, he's not Ilya Samsonov. He's still a great goaltender. I mean, he led that team to a Stanley Cup championship 2 years ago. So it is going to be a tough task. The Islanders certainly have to stick to their game plan. That's playing 5-on-5. That's not going to the penalty box. That's making sure they lock down those top scorers that the Washington Capitals have. And it's a tall task. It's not going to be as easy a series as the Florida Panthers were. Not to say that it was an easy series, but certainly the Islanders are going to have to be more stringent in making sure they're sticking to their game plan, sticking to the Barry Trotz style, which is defense first and then transitioning outwards. That's where they're most successful, and making sure they're not in the penalty box. The Islanders' biggest flaw last series was special teams, power play and penalty kill. In Game 3, we saw that really hurt them, which cost them games. They made a couple little mental mistakes that cost them, and the penalty kill couldn't bail them out there. So the Islanders need them to stand up a little bit more this round and obviously stay out of the box. They're best at 5-on-5. Look, they can play with the best of them. We saw it earlier in the season when they were winning 10 games straight and they were picking up points in 17 consecutive games. So they can do it. It's not like this is an impossible task, but it's going to take a very strong effort from them.
Yeah, now going back to like the first round of the playoffs, the qualifying round, what were your thoughts on the quality of play and the actual hockey we saw, obviously being on a huge break in hockey? What were your thoughts on the hockey we saw come back in the qualifying round?
Yeah, I think it was as good as people could have hoped it was going to be, right? Because there was a lot of competitive games. There really wasn't a lot of drop off, and with the Islanders in particular, they played well. They, like I said, they looked like the team during the regular season, so that was huge. The round robin games can't really say as much because those weren't as entertaining. And I think a lot of teams in the round robin kind of took those as more exhibition and preseason games than anything else, even though it determined seeding. But still, the qualifying round was a lot of fun to watch. You had a lot of really competitive games. You had a lot of really fun games, and obviously just having hockey on the entire day for certain days was a lot of fun. So I think the NHL got a product that was as good as they could have hoped for in this situation. And I think I was kind of surprised at how well-tuned a lot of these guys were, considering the length of the layoff we had there. They were not practicing for 4 or 5 months. In the Islanders' case, one of the things that Barry Trotz did say really helped them was the fact that they had coaches on the ice during phase 2. So they had some of their coaching staff with them during the players-only portion, which really helped keep them in line and maybe kept those practices a little more up-tempo than they would have been if it was just the players only practice. So that certainly helped, and you could see it in training camp, and then you could see it once the qualifying round got going.
Now, Christian, you mentioned how the round robin games were more of an exhibition type of style of play. Now, the two teams that met in the Stanley Cup last year were both round robin teams, the St. Louis Blues and the Boston Bruins. Both went winless in the round robin series. Do you see that as an issue, or do you think that the Blues or Bruins will have no issue returning to the Cup this year like last year?
Yeah, the Bruins are not hiding the fact that they literally were just like, whatever, right? You kind of had guys going out there and saying, it was exhibition. Now we're going to play real hockey. So, whether that's true or not, it'll kind of be interesting to see. We'll really get a sense when these games happen, when the first round starts to take place, because then we'll get a real sense of whether these guys were kind of giving us a story to kind of make up for the fact that they weren't playing great, or were they really were just treating them as tune-up games and not giving it 100%. You can certainly appreciate and understand why they would do that, because that's makes more sense for them. They're in the playoffs. They're going to play one of the qualifying round teams, and granted, Boston and Washington both seem to be playing so that they could not play the Carolina Hurricanes in that last game. But still, I think there's some truth to a lot of these round robin games really being treated as exhibition instead of a actual competitive matchup. So. And the Blues case, I think we'll see a much different team once we get into the first round. And I would say a little bit for the Boston Bruins too. I'm not totally sold that they were really not dogging it, or they were dogging it completely just because they were treating it as an exhibition game. But I think there's some truth in that.
Moving back to the New York series, is there one player that will decide the series for the Islanders, and if so, who?
It's a good question. I think it's more of kind of a collective of different guys, because really, when you look at the Islanders, it's a team game, and they are one of the ultimate teams, really. That's Barry Trotz's system. The emphasis is on the team and not the player. But looking at a couple of specific players that are certainly going to have an impact, you would have to talk about Anthony Beauvillier, who had a lights-out series in the qualifying round. Where he really became one of the biggest X factors on the Islanders and really led the charge when it came to the Islanders offense. So he's certainly going to be a factor in this game, in this series. And of course, when you're talking about scoring, you have to look at the Islanders top line, and specifically Jordan Eberle and Matt Barzal. Those two guys are the much more talented of the two on that top line trio. And that's not to take anything away from Anders Lee, but Lee's more of a gritty, go down in front of the net and get some of the garbage goals kind of guy. Eberle and Barzal are more of the skilled guys. So you saw Barzal get it going a little bit in that last game. You saw Eberle start to pick it up as the series went on too. So you need them to kind of continue that charge once you get into the first round, especially against a team like the Washington Capitals. And of course, on the blue line, when you're looking at important players, there's no more important player than Adam Pelech, who really became the focus of the regular season and what happened with the success and the failures for the Islanders. So he comes back in, and the depth back there helps, but having Adam Pelech back there and being able to make some smart key defensive plays really changes the course of this series.
Yeah, now we have 2 12 seeds who won their qualifying round series, both obviously with a lot of playoff experience. Do you think either of those 12 seeds, the Blackhawks or the Canadiens, could possibly get another upset and maybe potentially make a deep playoff run?
I'm a little more hesitant to say that the Blackhawks or the Canadiens are really going to get another kind of, whatever you want to call it there. But I just don't think Chicago really matches up well in this round. I think they kind of got a little bit lucky in the last round. I think they kind of got a little bit lucky just to be here in the first place. So I don't know. I'm really skeptical of them really upsetting anyone going forward. Montreal, maybe I could see a little bit more. It'll be interesting, but I mean, Philadelphia is such a talented team. They are going to have their hands full when it comes to the Philadelphia Flyers, because those guys have just been one of the hottest NHL clubs, really even before the pandemic hit and we had to pause. They've just been lights out.
One last question for you, Christian. We've mentioned a bunch of great teams, the round robin winners, the Colorado Avalanche are some of the best teams in the NHL. Who do you see winning the Stanley Cup?
That's a good question. I could see Vegas coming away with the Stanley Cup championship this year. I mean, we know how close they came their first year in the league, and there's certainly no patsy out in the Western Conference. So I think out West, Vegas is going to be the team. And I think and when it comes to the Cup final, it's going to be Vegas.
Well, thank you so much, Christian, for joining us. Again, go follow him on Twitter at @C_Arnold01. And when we come back, we will be discussing the MLB's issues with the global pandemic COVID-19. Stay with us. Welcome back to Sports Table Talk. And again, big thanks to Christian Arnold for joining us to talk about some NHL playoff news. But as we spoke about in our first segment of the show, with college football maybe canceling for the year, we said that without a bubble, it really can't work. And I don't think it's really worked either. Baseball. I mean, the Miami Marlins, the St. Louis Cardinals have all missed significant games because half of their players have tested positive for COVID-19. I mean, now that only doesn't even kick out games for them. That kicks out games for the teams that they were playing. The Marlins visited the Phillies. The Phillies had to quarantine. That means the Yankees had to quarantine in Philadelphia because the Yankees couldn't play the Phillies, who played the Marlins. It's a big, giant spider web. I mean, I don't get what Rob Manfred went through his head when he was figuring out this plan.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just so unfortunate for baseball because you have teams like the Indians where the guys are going out, and it's just like, I don't get why they don't care. Like, and when you look at the teams, you see the Marlins, you see the Cardinals. It's just not like top contending teams. Like, I would bet anybody $1,000 that nothing like that happens to the Yankees, because they will stay. Like, they are top contenders. They have a shot. Dodgers will never do that because they have a shot. And if they were to do that, they'd just be kicked off the team and they'd be sorry. But it's just a revolving door now of teams that can't play games because of the situation with COVID. And I feel like it's just going to keep happening to the non-contending teams throughout the year. And the Marlins came back after this season hiatus and were 7-1. Yeah. And with a completely depleted roster and with no assets or anything. So I feel like it's just going to keep coming down to these teams. And I was complaining, I'm still so happy to have baseball back, but I was complaining when it first came out that there would be a 60-game season. I felt like without all the garbage with the Players Association, you could have easily gotten in 82. Now there'll be teams, you can't keep making up games. There'll be teams that play 50, 52 games. I just feel like, and when you go off a winning percentage and you play 52 games compared to a team that plays 60, it's just not fair.
Oh, yeah, and like you said that, but also the garbage with the Players Association. How about Rob Manfred and, the league offices? We've seen players like Yoenis Cespedes and teammate of Yoenis Cespedes, Marcus Stroman on the Mets, both opt out recently because they don't feel comfortable and safe, in the circumstances that MLB is playing in. And whose fault is that? But Rob Manfred and the MLB league offices. No one's. They're to blame. And the NHL and the NBA have handled this perfectly. They have had zero people say that they don't feel comfortable in the bubbles. So it's on MLB. It's their fault. They should have figured out a better way to do this. They're already doing regional games, so why not do regional bubbles? Am I right? I mean, it's just ridiculous. And now we have players from teams opting out mid-season. I mean, the season it's I feel like the season is compromised already. It's hardly, I mean, it can't even be called a normal season.
Absolutely, Sam. And then when you just touching back on the Mets, I don't think Yoenis Cespedes opted out because of COVID. I think he just wanted out. I mean, he's been a nightmare for the Mets, but as long as he doesn't get that enormous chunk of money, I guess I'm okay with it. But losing Stroman was an absolute killer for the Mets. They're now in such a tough spot that I feel like they were dark horses to win their division at the beginning of the year. That talk is over. I'm sorry. It's just going to be rough for them to continue this season with especially now Syndergaard and Stroman out. The back end of that rotation is awful. The bullpen, although Edwin Diaz has been playing better, he can't be trusted in a big spot at all. And that Mets team is going to really struggle.
Yeah, I mean, we've mentioned how angry and upset we are with Rob Manfred, and especially the MLB Players Association. I think the only side of the story and the only, person who had a say that actually made a good decision was the Canadian government not letting the Blue Jays play in Toronto and cutting out that border crossing going from Canada to U.S. back and forth. I mean, now, they said they can't play in Toronto, so of course they had to find another spot to play. But, I mean, don't even get me started about the Mets. You're telling me that Yoenis Cespedes Saturday night sitting in his hotel room in Atlanta, let me just leave. Let's not tell anyone. Let's not show up to the ballpark. Let's just fly home. Who are you? You fought a boar and you lost and you broke your ankle and you were done for the season.
Only the Mets.
I don't get it. Marcus Stroman, yes, I understand Marcus Stroman. Calf tear, I'm sorry. Noah Syndergaard, Tommy John, I'm sorry. The Mets had one of the better rotations in the league before they were plagued with injuries. The only bright spot of the Mets this year is, of course, Jacob deGrom. And Andres Jimenez is, one of the better rookies that we've seen so far in the league.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the Mets are a disaster at this point. Their starting pitching rotation is terrible. Besides deGrom, of course, they have basically no one and a lot of question marks. They're going to have to do something about that. And Cespedes being their DH for the beginning of the season, he's gone. I mean, they still have some good hitters, but there's a lot of question marks on that team. It's just chaos with them.
Absolutely. And then with Pete Alonso struggling early in the year, when I saw Yoenis Cespedes hit that home run on opening day, I felt like he was back. And, boy, that might have been the worst thought process that I've ever had in my entire life. Complete disaster since opening day. I felt like that roster could have went deep and they could have made the playoffs and they could have went somewhere, even with Syndergaard out, their second best pitcher. But now, like both of you have said, it's a disaster and they backed themselves right into a corner, and it's just the Mets as usual.
Right. I mean, early on in the season, like the first few games, they looked pretty good. They looked like they could have maybe they looked like they could have made a playoff push potentially, maybe won a couple games, maybe won a series. But, I mean, it's all come crumbling down from there, if we're being quite honest.
And talking about the recent news, like Ryan said before, Indians pitchers Mike Clevenger and Zach Plesac both went out on the town. Let's go grab a couple drinks after our game at Wrigley Field. Let's go into Chicago, go to a bar, and probably get COVID. You know what I mean? I mean, you can't. You're on a team. You have a contract to that team. And, I think the MLB needs much harsher punishments for these players that break it. Yes, I understood the Indians sent them back to Cleveland and made them quarantine. I mean, I'm not sure how long they're going to make them quarantine for. With the stupid decision to go out drinking, you had a day game the next day too. And you still went out drinking. I don't understand the thought process of some of these players. But, hey, I'm not in the MLB. I'd like to tell myself when I get too worked up about it, Jack, you're not in the MLB. You're not in the MLB. You can't control what happens.
Absolutely. And then you look at the rules for the MLB, I feel like the one rule that's going to help them, and Sam, I don't know if you agree with me or not, is the away team has to stay in the hotel. That can cut down so much on the spread of COVID. You go from the hotel to the ballpark. That's it. You go home, you can do whatever you want, but barring any unfortunate circumstances, it really should cut down on the spread of COVID throughout the MLB. When the Marlins play the Cubs, you got to stay in the hotel. Sorry. You just go – I know it's boring. Bring an Xbox. Bring a PlayStation.
Exactly.
Bring a nice book. Sorry. It's how it is now. Like, you got to deal with it.
And it's ridiculous. If you don't want to stay in the hotel, if you don't want to abide by the guidelines, why are you in the MLB? Why are you traveling with the team to this game? Why are you playing, right? Sure, you want to be an MLB player, but you don't necessarily believe in the effects of COVID. Okay, well, that isn't the team's fault. That is not the league's fault. That is on you, okay? Then you decide not to go, not to show up to the game. It's as simple as that. You can't put your team in jeopardy. You can't put the rest of the league in jeopardy. And most importantly, your family in jeopardy, because there is no bubble in the MLB. So if you do get COVID, you are putting your family in harm's way. It's just baffling that these players don't understand that they cannot go out for night on the town after a game, especially when they have a day game. Forget about health for a second. You have a day game the next day and you are going out drinking like less than 12 hours before your next game. Come on. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, and one of the more interesting stories, I think, of the MLB this year is the issue with Nick Markakis. Now, if you guys aren't familiar, Nick Markakis opted out of the season. Fine, go stay with your family, don't get COVID, whatever. He comes back 2 weeks later and he hits a walk-off home run. So now you could just opt out, and now you're saying that you can come back anytime you want to help your team win? Oh, Nick Markakis saw that his Braves are struggling a little bit, so you just come out of quarantine, just coming into the game straight very soon after and hitting the walk-off home run. You have to have harsher punishments. The NBA punished Lou Williams for going out and eating a box of wings. You can't have Nick Markakis staying home for a week, coming back, not knowing where he's been, and let him step up to the plate and go yabo in the ninth inning to win the game. You can't let that happen.
Exactly. And let's say, the Phillies are a couple games away from making the playoffs. Let's say Bryce Harper opted out, okay? Bryce Harper obviously being the Phillies' best player. Then what? Let's say Bryce Harper comes back for those last couple games. I mean, really? You're going to allow that? It's ridiculous. Come on. You have to have, like you said, with the Lou Williams situation, that was a stupid decision by him, but the NBA decided to discipline him for it. The MLB just honestly could not be handling this worse.
Absolutely. I agree with that. But when it comes to Nick Markakis opting out, I think he was just really afraid for what COVID did to his teammate, Freddie Freeman. Freddie Freeman with the quote, I think he said, "Please don't take me." It was really a concerning situation, lost a lot of weight. And I completely get being scared over that and then opting out. But then seeing that and then coming back a week later, I feel like that risk is still just as bad as it was a week ago. Not much changed. It could happen to any teammate, and it could happen to him. And he could be that one making people opt out because they're scared of what could happen to him. And it's just going to be another situation where teammate after teammate can get it, and it's just really frightening for when you know those guys. You're around them every day. Nick Markakis is probably very good friends with Freddie Freeman, and he had to be out and felt like his life was at risk. So I completely get opting out, but I don't know why he came back a week later.
Yeah, I understand opting out, but like you just said, just hammer it home. You said, I understand opting out. I sympathize with everyone who opts out. I do not judge you. I completely get it. But I mean, what are you coming back for? And also, when you do come back from opting out, you could be putting the rest of your team and, other players on other teams at risk, because if you are going out to restaurants and whatever and bars or living normal life, you may have COVID, but you may be asymptomatic. That still doesn't mean you can't give it to other people. So it's a very sticky situation.
And when we come back, we are going to move to world-famous Walt Disney World down in Orlando, and we're going to talk some basketball, some awards and finals predictions in the coveted bubble. We'll be right back. 1 hour down and 1 hour to go here on the Sports Table Talk Show. I'm joined by Sam Levine and Ryan Blake, and we are here to discuss our award predictions for the NBA. You know, who we see in the finals, who we see winning the awards, our breakout players, whatever we're going with. And, you know, I'm going to start off big, bold statement. Rookie of the Year, Zion Williamson. Give it to me.
Nah, it can't happen.
Okay.
It just can't happen. Nah, it has to be John Morant. You can't give it to someone. It was the same situation a couple of years ago with Embiid. You can't give it to someone that played 20 games. You got to throw it to – I mean, John Morant's a much better choice than what was Malcolm Brogdon. But, I mean, you got to give it to Ja. He's the reason his team's in the spot that it is now, fighting for playoff contention. And I'm going to have to give it to Ja. There's no reason why it should be Zion. Of course, he played very well in the limited amount of games that he did play in the regular season, but I really just can't stomach giving it to Zion.
Yeah, I'm going John Morant too. I mean, Zion played 20 games. And John Morant was special throughout the entire season. He really came in, and I have to give him a lot of credit because, you know, the Grizzlies got rid of Michael Conley this offseason, and John Morant stepped in and filled his shoes very nicely and put his team into a situation where they could very well make the playoffs as an 8 seed. So I give him a lot of credit.
Yeah, I got to give credit. You have to be crazy if you don't give credit to John Morant. I mean, great story, coming from Murray State, you know, unrecruited out of high school, going second overall. I mean, Zion Williamson, though, first overall pick. We knew he was going to be the first overall pick, too. 24 games played, 23 points, 6 rebounds. He shot 43% from three. He is 6'6", 280 pounds of pure muscle, and he shot 43% from behind the arc, along with 65% from the field. So I see Zion winning, but of course, you know, Ja. I mean, you can't really argue it. I mean, Ja's great too.
No doubt,
But
Zion.
I got Zion Williamson. Moving on to Defensive Player of the Year, I got the person who shut down the NBA, Rudy Gobert, after he stupidly touched everything in that media room, really causing the NBA to shut down. I mean, you can't overlook what he does on the defensive side of the ball. 2 blocks a game, 0.8 steals per game, best defender in the NBA, no question.
Oh, Gobert is the best rim protector in the entire NBA on that Jazz team that is very, you know, I like to say offensive focused. I believe they're one of the best 3-point shooting teams in the entire NBA with Mitchell, Conley. They got a lot of offensive power there, and Rudy Gobert is just a defensive stalwart. And 0.8 steals for a big man, that's some crazy numbers. And like you said, the blocks are out of this world. He deserves it. He is the Defensive Player of the Year.
Absolutely. I was gonna try to side with Giannis, but when it just comes down, you got to, when you watch him play, and when it comes to the stats, you guys mentioned 0.8 steals for a big man, incredible. He's actually been one of the best average steal defenders, especially as a big man in the league. 13.5 rebounds, just out of this world. You really can't argue with it. He's just a defensive anchor for that Jazz team, and very much part of the reason why they're there now. There's no playoff Jazz team if there's no Rudy Gobert, I would say.
You know, I loved what Sam said before. You know, with such a great offensive team, it's nice to have Rudy Gobert staying in the paint, being able to swat the ball to section 314 up in the top right deck. I mean, you know, it's nice to have that power on defense when you have Mike Conley and Donovan Mitchell shooting the lights out of the ball. Moving on to most improved player, this man got traded for Anthony Davis. The Lakers said, we don't want you here. Go to New Orleans. And he showed them up. He averaged 24 points, 4 assists per game. Brandon Ingram, give it to me. Chip on his shoulder. Performed so well. I think he and Zion and Lonzo Ball will definitely be one of the best trios in the league for years to come.
I mean, I could definitely see Brandon Ingram, but I really can't give it to anybody else besides Luka. I get Bam,
Wow.
I get Brandon Ingram, but when you just look at the stat comparison from Luka's last year to this year, it's incredible. He's averaging 29 points this year compared to 21 last year, 9 assists compared to 6 assists. The rebounds are much better. The steals are improving, and his defense is improving. He's going to be one of the best up-and-coming players for years to come. And honestly, here's a hot take. I think that he could win it again. I feel like he's going to take that jump again. And he's just becoming such a good player, and he's really exciting to watch throughout this league as a young point guard.
Yeah, I agree with you, Ryan. Luka Doncic is much improved. However, I do believe we saw those superstar talents in Doncic in his rookie year. I do not believe we saw this Brandon Ingram last year in 2019. I'm siding with Jack. You know, people were not scared of Brandon Ingram last year with the Lakers. They were backing off him when he was in three range, and now they're all over him. They are scared of him. They are scared of that three that he's got. And we saw in his first game back against the Jazz, a very good defensive team as well with Rudy Gobert. He was all over them. I know they lost that game, but he was all over them. And that is a perfect example to me of how much he has improved. A 5-point differential, a 5-point increase from last year to this year. 1 more rebound, 1 more assist, 0.5 more steals. He's just improved in every aspect of the game, and he hasn't actually got more minutes. So I love what he's been able to do in New Orleans. That's my pick for most improved player.
I mean, Lucas said himself. Lucas said himself that he shouldn't even be there. He said Devontae Graham should be there from the Hornets. You know, that's great. You know, Luka Doncic can increase by, 8 points. He won Rookie of the Year. You can't win Most Improved Player while winning Rookie of the Year the year before. I don't see it. I don't see it.
Graham,
I gotta say, there's no shade to Brandon Ingram, but I gotta go Luka. I mean, when you just look at the pure stats, he's much better. And again, no shade to Brandon Ingram, has become a great player in this league. But I mean, I feel like part of that is he wouldn't be performing like that if he was still on the Lakers and that was AD and LeBron. I just gotta argue, like, he's become much more of a cornerstone of this Pelicans team, alongside Zion and others. And I feel like that's why he's in that spot now. I feel like if he was still in LA, he'd be still that young, skinny, tall,
lanky
guy. I mean, I just feel like Luka has just been improving so much, even from his first year, that I feel like he deserves it. Again, no shade to Brandon.
And
I mean, if I can – oh, no, go ahead, Sam.
Like you said, Jack, if Devontae Graham was in there, like I think he should be, he would honestly be my pick because he improved 14 points. He is scoring 14 more points than he did last year, 5 more assists and 2 more rebounds. He would definitely be my pick if he was in there.
I mean, going back to what Ryan said, if I can quote the famous Herb Brooks, the 1980 miracle coach for the United States Olympic hockey team, great moments are born from great opportunities, and Brandon Ingram got a great opportunity, and he made a great moment from it. Moving on to 6th man of the year, I have Dennis Schroeder. You know, I understand what the Thunder did was amazing. You know, Chris Paul came in, led them to one of the better teams in the West when they were not even predicted to make the playoffs. But, I mean, I don't think without Dennis Schroeder that the Thunder would be in the position they would be in right then. He is the rock of that bench. You know, Victor Oladipo left that bench a couple of years back. Dennis Schroeder really stepped in nicely after being traded from the Hawks, and I think he's my 6th man of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. And when Paul George was gone from the Thunder, you look at the Vegas odds, that team was a 34 win team. I mean, very middle of the road, very rebuild focused. They brought in Chris Paul off of that, and I feel like he completely took over, and his backup, Dennis Schroeder, completely deserves the award for the spot that they are in now. That team just overall performed so well and just exceeded expectations by far. And I feel like Dennis Schroeder is a big part of that.
Yeah, I'm going to have to jump on the bandwagon and agree here. Really, like you guys have said here, you know, the Thunder were not expected to really make the playoffs. The Lou Williams and Montrezl Harrell, the other 2 finalists, are both from the Clippers. They were very much expected to make the playoffs. And Dennis Schroeder just came in. He's been the best six man, the best bench player in the entire NBA, and he deserves a lot of credit for the spot that the Thunder are in now, picking up some of the slack that Russell Westbrook left behind.
Believe me, I can't take credit away from Lou Williams. I mean, he's a 3-time six-man award winner. The only other player I could see winning is Montrezl Harrell, but again with Lou Williams coming off the bench, I think those two are too equal. I think if you really were looking for a standout six-man of the year, it's got to be Dennis Schroeder. And some people say that coach of the year could be Billy Donovan, the coach of the Oklahoma City Thunder. I'm going to disagree with some people on that. I'm going to go Mike Budenholzer, Bucks coach, best record in the NBA, best player in the NBA, and Giannis Antetokounmpo. Who do you guys see winning coach of the year?
I am taking Nick Nurse, okay?
Okay.
You said best player in the NBA. All right, well, Nick Nurse doesn't have the best player in the NBA. In fact, he lost a top 5 player in the NBA, and their record improved this season with Pascal Siakam and Kyle Lowry. He has coached up Pascal Siakam to be quite the player. He has improved a lot. The 2019 most improved player. I got to give credit where credit is due. Nick Nurse has done an outstanding job with that team, building that team to make it one of the most well-rounded and talented teams all around. Got to give him the credit. He doesn't have that superstar. I know Kyle Lowry and Pascal Siakam are both great players, but he doesn't have that top 10 player that he did last year in Kawhi Leonard.
Sam did not say one word wrong. I mean, you got to go with Nick Nurse. The way he just completely took this team to a better record than with Kawhi Leonard, it just amazes me. He turned Fred VanVleet into an undrafted Wichita State guy into a vocal point in this offense. I mean, making great players. Pascal Siakam is a top player in this league. And I feel like a lot of that is due to the success that Nick Nurse has had with the Raptors. I mean, ever since Dwayne Casey left, Nick Nurse has been a very, very, very great coach. And one of the best things to ever happen to this Raptors franchise. He won a championship with the Raptors, finally bringing in one to them. And still, they're a very deep playoff team in the hunt for another finals trophy. So I got to give it to him off of that. He completely deserves it. And no disrespect to any of the other coaches. Billy Donovan, again, just like the Raptors, but not as much, not to the extent, bringing that team, making it a much more improved team. And Billy Donovan has proved himself a lot throughout this coaching career. And again, with the Bucks, I completely agree with that. But he does have Giannis, I guess, working with him. But you got to give it to Nick Nurse. He completely deserves it.
Now, I know that, everyone's been looking forward. This has been one of the tightest MVP races of all time, I would say. 3 finalists, James Harden, LeBron James, Giannis Antetokounmpo. You guys heard me say it before, and I'll say it again. Giannis is the best player in the NBA. Raise the flag, Greece. The MVP's coming home again for the 2nd straight year. Give it to Giannis, best player in the league.
Mm-hmm. Completely agree with it. I get the argument for all 3 of them. All great seasons. James Harden, such a great scoring season again. LeBron powering through at such a declining age. There's no rust on the king. I completely agree with the arguments for all 3 of them, but you got to give it to Giannis, best player in the NBA. Like Jack said, there's no reason not to. Again, great seasons from all the finalists. Completely get the arguments for all 3.
All right, this is really tough, and I'm going to probably get a lot of hate for this. I'm not going Giannis. I am going James Harden.
What?
Okay? He put up 34 points per game, led the league by 4 points, okay? 6 rebounds, 7.5 assists, which is more than Giannis had, 1.8 steals, which is more than Giannis had, and 0.9 blocks, which is 0.2 less than Giannis had. Now, it came down to for this for me. I was going back and forth, but it came down to this for me. You take Giannis away from the Bucks, I still think they are a pretty good team. I don't think they're the 1 seed by any stretch of the imagination. I don't think that, they accomplish anything that they have really, but I still think they're a pretty good team and a playoff team. you take James Harden away from the Rockets, they aren't a playoff team. I mean, you could argue that Russell Westbrook could carry that team, but I mean, I just don't think so. With the production that James Harden has given this team, I mean, behind Russell Westbrook and then Robert Covington and PJ Tucker, if we're going to be honest, they don't have a lot of really good players, and James Harden picks up so much of the slack from that. And he is a nightly triple-double threat and a nightly threat to put up 50 points. It is just incredible what he's been able to do. I understand if someone's saying Giannis, and I could very well pick Giannis. I sway back and forth. But right now, I'm feeling James Harden, especially the way he's been performing in the bubble.
Yeah, and I know that, we're running out of time in this segment here, but one last question to get off. My NBA champion is the Los Angeles Clippers. Tell me yours.
I got to go with the Lakers. I mean, such an explosive team, LeBron, AD. I really can't go wrong with them. I get the Clippers argument, but I feel like when it comes down to the Western Conference Finals and it's Lakers-Clippers, I feel like the Lakers are taking it in 6. I just feel like they've got those weapons, LeBron, AD, best players in the league. Just a much better overall team than the Clippers, but it is a very close race.
Yeah, I agree with everything that Ryan said. Clippers are my pick 100%. Jack, I agree with you. Clippers, I think Kawhi and Paul George, they're going to push through.
I think the bench depth is what makes it for me. I have the Clippers winning. When we come back, we're going to keep it on the hardwood, and we are going to talk about our starting lineup for the best NBA bubble performers so far. Stay tuned. Welcome back, guys, to Sports Table Talk. I'm Jack Stankey, joined by Sam Levine and Ryan Blake, and we're going to keep it on the hardwood here and discuss our thoughts for the NBA bubble starting 5. Now, the NBA just announced they were going to make bubble, teams like first, second, third teams along with an MVP. But, I think it could be really interesting for us to run down, since there's been so many breakout players this year in the bubble, to go down position by position. I'm going to start off with my NBA bubble first team point guard is Damian Lillard, dropping 30-plus points several times, dropping 51 on the 76ers. Yes, I get that he missed those 2 free throws against the Clippers to win that game. But, I think he's keeping his team very tight in contention for that 8th playoff spot, especially with the Grizzlies and the Pelicans being knocked out of contention. I think he has a great shot, and I think Damian Lillard is the rock of that Trailblazers team. I think he's my point guard.
Oh, Lillard has been incredible. He is my point guard as well. He is, I want to say, almost single-handedly, offensively, carried that Trailblazers team and put them within 0.5 of a game away from the 8th seed in the West. He's just been incredible. We've seen Dame time, fourth quarter Dame, this entire bubble restart. He is phenomenal.
Yeah, I completely see Lillard. I'm going to have to say Luka. I could 100% see Damian Lillard, though, completely carrying his team. But when you watch the games, he's just been so much more explosive than he looks in the regular season. You could definitely see that he's been working out, improving during this hiatus. Again, Lillard completely driving his team to a very close to a playoff position. We'll see how that plays out later in the day. But I'm going to have to go with Luka as my point guard.
Yeah, I mean, when I got that news of Luka Doncic dropping a 49-point triple-double with 19 assists, exactly. I mean, I almost threw my phone. Yeah. If I could give you my genuine reaction, I was shocked. Yeah. I thought something went wrong. I was absolutely
especially against the Bucks. Especially against the Bucks.
I mean,
exactly.
Yeah. I'm moving to the 2 spot. I think we're all going to say Devin Booker. I mean, 6-0, 35 points per game. He was out of contention completely. He led his team right near the Blazers for the 8th seed. Do you guys have any different opinions?
Not at all.
There's no other shooting guard. You can't argue it.
Best player on an undefeated team.
There's no discussion. He is by far the best shooting guard. I mean, a Cinderella team, Suns 6-0.
Yeah.
Like, since when have we ever heard that the Suns are in playoff discussion?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, ever. Like, what is that? I've never once heard that.
If we're going to be honest, listen, I'm a big fan of the Trailblazers right now with how good Lillard has been playing. But, I mean, if the Suns were to get in with Rod and D-Book, That would be something else.
That's a dangerous team. I tell you, if the Lakers were, you can't mess around with them.
Yeah,
Because they could pull a game or two on you real quick. When you watch these games, they just play team basketball, dishing the rock around, and it's led by Devin Booker, one of the best young shooting guards in this entire league, and by far the best shooting guard in this bubble.
I knew he was legit the second he hit that turnaround, fade, pivot. I'm not even sure what to even call it, on two of the best defenders in Paul George and Kawhi Leonard in the entire NBA. That shot was crazy. I think that really gave them the momentum to move on. Now, moving to small forward, you guys are going to get mad at me for this because, I barely even heard of this guy before this. It's not TJ Warren because he comes in at a different point. Gary Trent Jr. is my NBA bubble small forward. I'm going to tell you why. He has shut down Paul George. First off, he has shut down one of the better offensive scorers in the league. On the Trailblazers, he's making a run for that 8 seed with Damian Lillard. But the stat that absolutely blows my mind, this man is shooting 60% from behind the arc. It's not like he's, 4 for 6 or whatever, or Shaq, whatever, with his, crazy thing, or Yao Ming shooting like 100% from 3 for his career. He's taken over 33s, and he is still shooting 60%. I mean, just to think about that when you haven't even heard about this guy. Yeah, in college he was all right. He got drafted, but, this guy is going crazy. Gary Trent Jr. is my position at the 3 spot.
Yeah, I definitely think Trent Jr. has been going off for the Trailblazers. He's really contributed, but he is not my pick, if we're going to be honest. It's TJ Warren, like you said. I mean, yes, he's had a couple off games, maybe 1 or 2, but otherwise than that, he has been all money, leading the Pacers over big wins, especially in that 76ers game, dropping 53 points. I mean, it's incredible what he's been able to do. Really, just a phenomenal player here in this bubble.
Yeah, absolutely agree with Sam. And Jack, I do love that Gary Trent poll. I mean, as you said, reported there's going to be bubble awards. I feel like Gary Trent definitely should win Most Improved if there is an award for that in the bubble. Yeah. But again, I'm going to have to agree with Sam. I'm going to have to take TJ Warren. Like he said, he's had some off games, but where he's shown up, he has shown up. I mean, just playing lights out. Again, the off games against teams like the Suns, last night against the Heat. But other than that, he's put up very, very strong numbers in this bubble.
And believe me, when I said TJ Warren comes in later, I meant like a second later. I have TJ Warren at my power forward, actually, because I kind of put him at power forward just because I've seen him play there before. I didn't want to give it to Anthony Davis because I had to give TJ Warren the credit. But, Gary Trent was also going off. So, yeah, at my power forward positions, TJ Warren, and, just quoting what you guys said, 53 points against the Sixers. Only bad game was against the Heat, but that was just because him and Jimmy Butler had some weird rivalry going on. I'm not really sure why they had that. It's Jimmy Butler and TJ Warren. But, that don't even get me started with that. But, yeah, TJ Warren is my power forward.
Yeah, and again, I'm kind of going with another one of those like flex forward guys. I'm going to take Jason Tatum. He started cold in his first game, but from there he's gone off. He has been the headline player for the Celtics like we know him, like we know he has been all season. And, one of those flex forward guys that I really like, putting him in at that power forward spot. I really like that. Such a multi-dimensional player, such a versatile player. He can do everything on the court for you. He's been really the main reason the Celtics have been very good so far in the bubble, especially against the Raptors.
I think me and Sam have the same top 5. I think some got mixed up because I got to go with Tatum again. Like you said, besides that one game to forget, that first game, really, really horrible. I can't even sugarcoat that. Awful performance. But since then, again, like you said, putting up very, very strong numbers, consistently scoring 20. The other day scored almost 30 off of 10 for 24, and great stats to go with it. Leading this Celtics team, and I really am excited to see what they do deep in this playoffs with Kemba. And Tatum's going to be a huge part of this Celtics team alongside Jaylen Brown and others.
Believe me, I'm a huge Jason Tatum fan. He, I think, is going to be one of the best stars in the NBA for a long time to come. But moving to the center position, Joel Embiid. I'm not sure if you guys can see it correctly. We got the man, the myth, the legend. He dropped 41 points and 21 rebounds in his first game of the bubble. I mean, come on, Joel. You are going off right now. He followed up with a 27, 30, then 23-point performance. I know Ben Simmons went down. I know Embiid went down now. We just got the alert that Tobias Harris and Al Horford are also going to be hurt for a little while. So, yeah, the 76ers fell apart completely, just unstitched. I'm not even sure what happened. 1 minute I was watching the complete team. Next minute I'm watching, Shake Milton and Josh Richardson leading the team. But, Embiid for me is one of those players that can go out any day of the week, put up in crazy numbers. He's better than Jokic. He's better than Kat. He's the best center in the NBA, and he's my bubble center.
Completely agree with the Embiid pick. Not much of an argument there. When you look at the stats, Jokic has been playing well, but not really anybody compares to Joel Embiid when you look at the stats. And I know the recent injuries are just absolutely killing the 76ers, with Ben Simmons reportedly out for the year and Embiid to miss a significant amount of time as well, really hurting them as a team. But throughout these games, he's really shown up and helped the team win. He mentioned the 40-point performance the other night. Magical to watch. And he's just so fluid down there in the post.
Yeah,
he can do it all. Great defender, great scorer, great shooter. He's really a leader for the 76ers team when hopefully they get back healthy and it's all well.
Yeah, listen, Jokic has been great, but Embiid has been better. Like you guys said, the 41, 26, 30, it's just incredible, especially at the low post, being a traditional center with a little bit of leeway. But, he's been great since the bubble has returned, especially on a depleting 76ers roster without Ben Simmons for a game or so. And Al Horford, Tobias Harris going down. This team is crumpling, but it's, top 5 players in the bubble so far, and Embiid is right up there with the rest of the 4 guys that we have put on this list.
Remember, Joel Embiid, MVP, once in his career. When we come back, we will be moving to football. We don't even know if there's going to be football, but, it's always fun to talk about still. We're going to talk about some of the biggest off-season moves made in football. There's been some crazy things going on that's shaken up the NFL a lot. We'll be right back. To Sports Table Talk. I'm Jack Stankey, joined by Sam Levine and Ryan Blake, and we are here to talk about in my eyes, some of the biggest moves the offseason in the NFL has ever seen. This has been one of the craziest offseason. You have the best quarterback of all time leaving his team. You have a former MVP leaving his team. You have a top 3 wide receiver leaving his team. But we're going to start off with Jamal Adams being traded from the Jets to the Seahawks for a bag of potato chips and a second-round pick. I think that's blasphemous. I'm not a Jets fan, but it is crazy to me that the Jets can trade such a talent that for literally nothing. At least get a player. I'm not even sure who they got, nor do I really care at this point. You should not be trading Jamal Adams. Joe Douglas, fix your team.
All right.
Yeah, I got to disagree with you. The bag of potato chips, I got to disagree with. I thought he was going to get dealt for maybe a first-round pick only, but they got 2. And a center and a safety to replace him. I really despise the Jets, to be quite honest with you. And I got to give Joe Douglas props for this.
Wow.
Okay. He was in a toxic situation. He was going to hold out. And I'm sorry, I there might be teams that will. I'm not paying a safety $20 million. Not happening.
Oh, for sure.
You can't when you want to be the highest paid defenseman in the NFL, you're gone. I'm sorry. I don't want to. And I'm not paying a safety that much money at all. There might be teams that will. The Seahawks might. Looks like they've got some cap situations that they got to get through, but they could pay him if they clear some cap. I got to give the Jets props for this. This is B+A trade. Seriously, for the situation that they were in, they got a lot for it.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with you, Ryan, especially with that last statement. Let's pipe down there, Jack. I wouldn't call 2 first-round picks, a third-round pick, and a safety that has had 5 interceptions in the last 2 years, a bag of chips. Honestly, I think they got pretty good compensation for the toxic situation that they were in. Really, like you said, I thought they might maybe get a first-round pick, but no, they got some very good compensation for Jamal Adams. I really like what Joe Douglas was able to do and manipulate the situation to get maximum value. However, of course, those first-round picks do have to become players, so really not necessarily we can give it a stamped grade yet until we see who, of course, those players are. But, right now, at face value, I really like it for the Jets.
Yeah, Sam, you make a good point there about, you can't really put a grade on it yet. But, I mean, in my opinion, you can take the best safety in football and trade him for not a guaranteed, solid player, to say the least. I mean, the Jets have been in a rebuild since they made the AFC Championship with Mark Sanchez, I feel like. And I feel they were finally, they won a couple games last year. I feel like they were finally on the right track. And then they make this move. I feel like they're just backtracking a little more. But, that's not even close to the number one crazy signing that I've seen this year. Tom Brady to the Buccaneers, you got to be kidding me. I mean, I saw my phone. I would have bet my life that he wouldn't leave the Patriots after 20 straight AFC East titles, 6 Super Bowls, almost guaranteed the greatest quarterback of all time. He goes to the Bucs, and the Bucs get Rob Gronkowski to come out of retirement and follow Brady there. What a big win for the Bucs. That is crazy to me.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. I mean, I heard all the rumors about Tom Brady maybe leaving, maybe going to the Bucs, maybe the Titans, maybe the Raiders, and I was a big doubter of that. I was like, come on, there's no way Tom Brady's leaving the Patriots. But, I mean, 1 year, $30 million contract, and he's in Tampa Bay. So, I mean, huge move for the Buccaneers. However, I'm a little cautious to give the Bucs like a little much credit right now and a little bit too much props, because we've seen this before when a new team loads up on a lot of veteran talent, superstar talent, and they expect to, go with them and rock with them and expect to be a playoff team off of those new acquisitions. We see it sometimes, a lot of time in basketball, but sometimes in football, where that team kind of falters and they have their issues. And that could stem from a multitude of places. Maybe some of them are hotheads. Maybe they're all superstars and they think, that they're going to run the show. So we'll have to wait and see with the Buccaneers. They do definitely have a lot of talent, though, however. Cannot deny that.
I'll tell you, it's like seeing Emmitt Smith in that Cardinals jersey. It's just so weird when you see like those Instagram posts, him warming up in that Bucs jersey. I feel like I'm seeing stars. I mean,
definitely wrong.
But when it comes to the Bucs, this is a really great move to win now. I mean, I really like the move. Tom Brady bringing back Gronk. He's got a lot of weapons on that Bucs team. You mentioned the possibility of them struggling. I think they'll be quite all right, to be honest with you, if this season gets underway. Definitely, I don't know, Super Bowl contenders. I don't think I'd go that far, but they can make a run. They could definitely make a pretty deep run. When you look at the roster, the way it's constructed, the weapons that Tom Brady has, that offense, I just feel like it was a pretty good move on the Bucs end, and for Tom Brady to distance himself from Belichick and prove that he could win. And later we'll see if Belichick can win without him.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see the Tampa Bay Buccaneers winning the NFC South. I've been a big believer in the New Orleans Saints this whole time. I think Michael Thomas is the best wide receiver in football. I think Drew Brees and him can get the job done. But, hey, Tom Brady, never bet against Tom Brady. And, we've seen Hoodie Mello, untouched jersey Kyrie. We've seen all these people. Now we have dark visor Brady. Are you kidding me? He might never lose a game again in the rest of his life. But filling in for the Patriots QB hole comes Cam Newton. And I know there was a lot of talk about Cam Newton signing with the Patriots. The Panthers released him after a Super Bowl run in 2015. He won MVP. Cam Newton, I still think, has gas in that tank of his. And I think that the Patriots can definitely make some noise in the AFC East, which I don't think is the strongest division.
Yeah, I think they can make some noise with him for sure. I mean, obviously, he's still a good quarterback. I don't really think that's up for debate. I think it's how good is he and how healthy is he going to be. We know he's had 3 surgeries 2 of which were on his shoulder. So we'll have to see how that plays out. But if, Cam Newton comes back and he is relatively healthy enough to begin with, I really think Bill Belichick is going to be able to get the most out of Cam Newton. He's that type of coach. He gets the most out of his players. And I think that Bill Belichick is really going to coach up Cam Newton in a way that provides Cam Newton with all the tools that he needs to make sort of a career revival, if you will, and make some noise in that division, which I think the Bills will still win, but I could see the Patriots as a wild card team.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I was much more excited about the move when it first happened compared to now. I said before, with Jarrett Stidham, they're a 7.5 win team. After the Newton signing, I felt like they went up to 9, but 9-8. But after this opting out of the Patriots defense, I feel like they're right back to 7.5. I mean, it's really unfortunate to see what happened, but I really do like the signing overall. Again, just the mentions that he's got to stay healthy. And if he doesn't stay healthy, I guess Belichick still has something to work with in Jarrett Stidham. But I do overall like the signing. Veteran quarterback. He's been there. He's done that. And I guess we'll see it play out over the season.
Yeah, and some of the other crazy offseason moves to me. I mean, 2 of the best wide receivers in football got, traded this year. And I'm going to start with DeAndre Hopkins. This move is nuts. The Texans were setting up for a run in the playoffs for several years to come in a row now. You have you had DeAndre Hopkins. You have Deshaun Watson. I'm not sure why they got rid of him. You still have a solid defense. I mean, Deshaun Watson and DeAndre Hopkins, I think, could make some noise together. But instead, the Texans wanted to trade DeAndre Hopkins to the Cardinals for a washed David Johnson. That's all right. You do you, Texas. Not pointing any fingers. DeAndre Hopkins will help the Cardinals immediately with the help of young QB Kyler Murray. Drafting Isaiah Simmons in the draft was an absolute steal for the Cardinals, and they make some noise in the NFC wildcard for years to come.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree with that, and I got to tell you, this is one of the worst trades in NFL history. You've got a growing Texans team that made the playoffs. Like, they were right there. I mean, they just needed a couple more pieces. Deshaun Watson, growing quarterback, going to be one of the top quarterbacks in the league for years to come. And you just throw away his number one weapon for, like, it makes no sense for David Johnson.
Exactly.
It makes no sense to me. I really don't understand it. Again, not really props to the Cardinals because they just sat there and just threw him some random garbage trade. And the Texans, with their eyes closed, just gambled and said, yeah, sure. I really don't understand it from a Texans perspective, but for the Cardinals, good work because I don't know. You must have fooled them or something. I have no idea what was going on with that.
Yeah, I mean, listen, before this trade, I wasn't a big Texans fan, but I relatively liked them. I like Deshaun Watson, DeAndre Hopkins, whatever. I rooted for them, whatever, right? But now I despise them. I mean, are you kidding me? You're getting rid of a top 3 wide receiver for what? Literally a wash David Johnson, like we've been saying. And, I mean, it's not like you desperately need a running back. Carlos Hyde got over 1,000 yards in that system. And I'm not saying he's a great running back, but he got the job done well enough. And, I mean, you're replacing him with Brandon Cooks. Are you kidding me? Ridiculous. And now the Cardinals get Kyler. Now the Cardinals get Kyler Murray, a real true wide receiver 1, and that's going to be great for his development. But I'm thoroughly mad at the Texans for making this move because it angers me that, I mean, it's just such a terrible move.
Yeah, I mean, another couple big moves happened. Todd Gurley signed with the Falcons this offseason. Stephon Diggs, went to the Bills after a long tenure in Minnesota. But, the last trade or offseason signing I want to focus on is DeForest Buckner. Now, DeForest Buckner is one of the better defensive players in the league. And, I think that his, presence on defense will help any team he is on. I mean, I think that he makes whatever team he's on a new contender in that division.
I think this trade really worked out for both teams because it was DeForest Buckner for a first-round pick straight up, right? The Colts did a really good job in the draft, I thought, getting Michael Pittman and Jonathan Taylor in the second round, both of them. 2 picks I love, absolutely adore, great for their team. So, and giving up the first round wasn't terrible because, you get, like you said, one of the best defensive players in the league. And for the 49ers, you're getting rid of DeForest Buckner, a potentially very expensive player who is up for contract soon. And don't get me wrong, you would have definitely had to pay him a lot of money. And you replace him with a younger option, Javon Kinlaw, the rookie out of South Carolina, defensive tackle. I'm very high on him. I think he's a really good player and could potentially step up into that Buckner role and fill that spot on the defense. So I think it works out for both teams very well. Both teams profit.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. And I find it a little bit hard to let go of DeForest Buckner like that. But again, if you're the 49ers organization and you think that this kid can be a real big step up, and to get rid of DeForest Buckner to just replace him with another D tackle, if you believe in him, I completely get the trade. If you don't, it gets a little confusing from there. But if you want to get rid of DeForest Buckner, because as Sam mentioned, the upcoming contract, he should be paid a lot of money. I completely agree with the trade on both sides. Again, win-win.
I mean, those practices in Indianapolis are going to be so cool to watch. DeForest Buckner trying to get around Quentin Nelson to go sack their new QB in Phillip Rivers. So I'm very excited for that. When we come back, we're going to stick on the turf of the football field. We're going to talk about some NFL teams and their over-under predictions made by the Vegas sports books, and we're going to say if they're going to pass them or not. Stay tuned. Folks, to Sports Table Talk. Yet again, I'm Jack Stankey, joined by Sam Levine and Ryan Blake. And keeping it NFL related, we are going to talk about some of these win totals for NFL teams. This is more of an over-under type of segment. So I'm going to give the team the win total, and then let's just see if they're going to cover it or not. The first team that I'm going to start off with is the reigning Super Bowl champions. The Kansas City Chiefs are totaled at 11.5 wins. I say they cover because, they're the Chiefs and their offense is extremely, extremely talented, high-paced, especially, drafting Clyde Edwards-Helaire this year. He's going to be one of the better players this year in the NFL. I say they cover.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to have to go over on that too. I mean, reigning Super Bowl champs, no reason why they shouldn't be able to hit even 13 wins. It's always possible. Not much to say. New contracts for the quarterback in Kansas City. I think they got a great chance to definitely go back to the Super Bowl, let alone hit the over-under on the wins. I definitely feel like they should hit at least 11.5.
Yeah, I agree. They're going to get over 11 and a half. I truly, like you said, Ryan, I don't see why they shouldn't, right? The best quarterback in the NFL at the moment, high-powered offense and improved defense. So, and reigning Super Bowl champs. So I really don't see any reasons to suggest that they shouldn't scratch 12, 13 wins.
Yeah, Ryan, I think you're doing Patrick Mahomes' contract a disservice by calling it just a contract. We're talking about a super-duper, mega, whatever. There's so many adjectives to describe that. $500 million. He bought part of the baseball team. Don't even get me started on that.
Right after the contract.
It's nuts. Baltimore Ravens, shockingly, not really shockingly, but are tied with the Chiefs for 11.5 wins. I'm going to say under for this because I'm not – listen to my point. I'll get it across. Lamar Jackson, he's very, very good quarterback. He won the MVP. He's definitely, one of the better quarterbacks in the league. But I don't have that faith in him yet again. I don't see him continuing to be one of the best quarterbacks in the league. I think he might even fall out of the top 5 after this year. I'm not a huge believer in his type of style of play with running the ball. I'm still a believer in Patrick Mahomes chucking the ball 80 yards downfield. But, the Ravens have a stellar defense. They signed Calais Campbell, which definitely helps them out a bit. But I'm saying under 11.5 wins for the Baltimore Ravens.
All right, I'm going to come in here, and I'm not going to lie. I pretty much agree with everything you said, Jack.
Yep.
I'm still a big believer in, the old-fashioned, maybe not old-fashioned, but, normal. You got to win by throwing the ball. And Lamar Jackson's style of running first, it's not long-term. It's not a long-term option. And eventually, NFL teams are going to get smart and figure out ways to slow him down in the run game. So I'm going to say slightly under maybe 10, 11 wins, more towards 10, but I still think they're going to see a noticeable decrease in production from him specifically this season.
I'm going to have to disagree with you guys. I mean, I get the saying that it's not the conventional way to play, but as long as he doesn't – I always have injury concerns with Lamar Jackson because it caught up to Michael Vick. It caught up to RG3. Just when will it catch up to Lamar Jackson, or is he special? He seems pretty special out on the football field, but you never know. But when it comes to their win totals, I think they're going to have more of a problem in the playoffs. If I was a betting man, I would not go anywhere near the Ravens for the Super Bowl. But here's a stat for you guys. The Ravens are favored in every single game this year. I find that fascinating.
That's crazy.
It's fascinating,
really cool.
But honestly, the Chiefs are going to beat the Ravens. I truly think they play in week 2. It's fascinating how they're favored. It's crazy, but
it's going to be a great game. But, I mean, I'm going to have to go over on the 11.5. I mean, I feel like they'll be a very, very, very great regular season team. And the only reason I'm not going to say Super Bowl bound, you've seen the question marks linked with Lamar Jackson in the playoffs. But that's my only problem for me when it comes to the Ravens.
True. And I would add that in the playoffs is a complete different type of game. I mean, you really have to make those throws to win playoff games. And maybe that's a little bit of the reason why, he hasn't had quite the playoff success. I know it's only 2 years. And he is a little bit of an underrated passer leading the league in touchdowns. But I'm not sure we've seen from him that we can call him a elite top 2, top 3 passer in the NFL just yet.
Moving to one of the weaker divisions in football in the NFC East, the Dallas Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles are both totaled at 9.5 wins over under. I see the Eagles going under, but as well as the Cowboys, I'm not a big fan of the Cowboys. Dak Prescott is not the real deal down there. Yes, I know, they made a lot of different moves. They drafted CeeDee Lamb. They still have Amari Cooper. Ezekiel Elliott, when he's on, he is on. But I do not see the Cowboys or the Eagles breaking that 9.5 win total.
Yeah, listen, I mean, isn't every year the Cowboys' year? I mean,
exactly.
At some point, you just got to cut the crap and just get down to it. Dak Prescott is not the quarterback, is not a $40 million quarterback to begin with.
That I can promise you.
100%. But he is not the quarterback that some people think he is. He hasn't surpassed 30 touchdowns until this past season. Okay, yes, he racks up a lot of yards, but I mean, yards aren't everything. And listen, if your defense can't get the job done, it doesn't really matter. And also, it's worth time to add that they lost Byron Jones, their best defensive player, to free agency to Miami. So in my eyes, this team got worse. And if it was their year last year and it's their year this year, they got worse. So, I mean, under.
I completely agree with both of the points. Very tough lines. If there was one team to do it at 9.5, I think I'd go with the Cowboys, but I think I'd have to go under on – if I go under on both, a division winner at 8 wins, I mean, come on. I mean, a pretty weak division.
Eagles had
struggling team.
That division is atrocious. Yeah, to say the least.
Struggling division, but
you're going to have 2 teams with less than 5 wins in that division.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you went 8.5 on both teams, I'd feel much better.
Yeah.
I just don't see either of the teams hitting 10 wins. I just don't. I think they could hit 9, but I really don't see 10. I'm sorry.
One over-under total that really, really surprises me is Vegas has the Patriots winning 9 games. Do we see that as an over-under? I take the under because, I mean, this is probably right before they lost all this defensive powers. You know, half their defense, I feel like, opted out of the season. Tom Brady's not there anymore to bail them out. They lost to the Tennessee Titans, and that's the last time we're going to see the Patriots make any noise in the playoffs. Under 9 wins from the New England Patriots.
Yeah, no, I am completely under. Their wide receiving core is atrocious. Julian Edelman is their only real wide receiver at this point. They have no tight end. They have a couple rookies, but, I mean, rookies aren't – I mean, they're third-round rookies, so they're not really – if they do get going, they're probably not going to get going until later on in the season. Running back situation is okay. We still don't know what Cam Newton is, and they lost 2 of their best defenders in Donta Hightower and Patrick Chung. And you have to remember, they also lost Kyle Van Noy, one of their linebackers, to free agency. So they essentially lost their 2 best linebackers and a very good veteran safety. So, I mean, I'm under. I'm around 8, 7.
Please tell me it's still a 9 because I'm about to buy me a new car. Like, oh, my goodness. It's not even close. If that is the most updated over-under for the season, give me 6, 7. Seriously, not even close. This team's defense has been destroyed. The only thing they have going for them is Cam Newton and the fact that Bill Belichick is their coach. Not even close to 9 wins. I'll give you 7 max. You are not getting anywhere near 9 wins. Nobody can argue with me that it's even close.
I think I'm going to wrap it up with my thoughts NFL team are crazy. My despise for the Cleveland Browns is on another planet. They are totaled at 8.5 wins. If they go over, I'll cut off my right arm. I see them going under. Baker Mayfield's not the real deal. That I can guarantee you. Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry are too busy, doing whatever they do on the sidelines to even do it. It's blasphemous. I don't understand. And I can't even speak. The Browns frustrate me so much. And watching all these people, all these analysts, the Browns are so good. The Browns Super Bowl favorites. No, the Browns are not my Super Bowl favorite. The Browns are not my AFC North favorite. They're not a good team. They're not a good team. They cannot win football games. They win. Can someone else take it? I mean, I can't even talk about it anymore.
I got you, dude. I'm gonna agree. This is a case of, okay, let's get a bunch of superstar players and throw them onto a team and get a young quarterback, and it's going to work. Well, obviously it hasn't. Okay, I like the move of Kevin Stefanski. He was a good coordinator in Minnesota. However, Pat Shurmur was a good coordinator. He went to the Giants. That didn't work out. So we'll have to see how it works out with Stefanski. I'm going to go under. I think maybe 8, 7, 8 might be a stretch. I don't know, somewhere around there, but I don't know.
I think 3 is a stretch. Miles Garrett is too busy nailing people over the head with his helmet to focus on winning a football game.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't really like this team. They really don't have it. I think they have some good individual pieces, but it doesn't mesh together on that team.
I'm gonna give them a little bit more than 3, but I'm gonna start with I do like the Jedrick Wills pick. I mean, really improving the line, but I feel like this when it comes to this line, all that matters is the play from Baker Mayfield. And I'm not too much of a supporter. I mean, I didn't say it, but
put it lightly.
I mean, I give him a 20% chance that this hits. I mean, I really doubt that the Browns can hit 9 wins. But if Baker steps it up a notch, which he might be able to do, a little so-so on that, then they could probably hit it. But got to have good quarterback play or else it's not happening.
He's too busy taunting the other teams to focus on playing football. I could go under center and throw a football better than Baker Mayfield. But I'm going to have to call it that because it gets my blood pressure too high when I talk about the Browns. That's going to be the end of our show today for the Sports Table Talk Show. Again, I'm Jack Stankey, Sam Levine, and Ryan Blake are here with me. thank you guys so much for listening. We're going to have a special guest tomorrow, so definitely stay tuned for that. And, always remember, don't bet on the Browns. I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.